Before you hit fast forward to get to Robert Fuller, I need to say a couple of things, and please hear me out. First off, we were given permission by Terry Garvin Simms, his old co-host, Bob Hazlewood, to allow this interview to air with Robert Fuller from, it's got to be about 4 years ago now, I think, when I looked at it. So, Bob, thank you very much if you're listening to this. And then two, I once again need to say rest in peace, Terry Garvin Simms. Again, you've heard us mention this on this show a bunch of times, but he interviewed Tracy Smothers, Marc Lowrance, Ronnie Garvin, so many big names, Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant, Lance Russell, countless people who really haven't done a ton of podcasts. So I needed to get that out. And then, Doc, I figure you probably got something to say, but I wanted to throw it at you. But I had to say thank you to Bob first. Rest in peace, Terry Garvin Simms, for all his work that he did on his show over 4 years' time.
Army listeners, BTT listeners, general wrestling lovers, I'm gonna shoot you straight like I always do. This is, in my opinion, the greatest wrestling podcast episode in the history of wrestling podcasts. I've been saying that for a while, haven't I?
Yeah, but you want to tell them why you say that about this?
We're going to come back at the end and kind of wrap up and giggle about some of the finer moments. But Rob Fuller, for those of you who watched and followed along with us in Smoky Mountain, provided us with some great moments. And, for us, it was a real good introduction into the stud versus the Colonel Parker. And when I listened to this episode the first time, it was like, he's everything you want him to be. He's everything you think he would be if you talk to him for an hour. And dude, he just sits down and tells stories, and it's really kind of the manual on how to get over in wrestling too while we're at it, with some fantastic stories. I think you should buckle in and learn a little bit about wrestling and be entertained as all hell.
I agree. So without any further ado, I'm going to throw it over to, like we said, rest in peace, Terry Garvin Simms, for all your work. You did great work on this show. So there it is. Here it is, and enjoy. We'll be back at the end of it to wrap things up.
Rob, how you doing, my friend?
I'm sitting here looking at the dadgum most beautiful dadgum lake you ever saw, and 70 degrees and beautiful blue skies, and talking to an old buddy that I love talking to. So.
Well, I sure appreciate that.
You and the Beauty and the Beast thing, that was top notch, man. I love that. I love that. If they'd come up with something like that today, that you'd see in Vince's New York program up there, it would get over like crazy. That was super. I loved it, and you know I did, because I sure tried to use you guys well.
And you did. The time that I was in Alabama and you came in as Booker, man, you let me run with anything and everything. You'd push the envelope. I mean, we did some pretty strange things, you got to admit. We broke Ms. Linda's arm a time or two.
That's it. We always rode the lightning bolt on being in question whether we was going to run next week or not. Some of the stuff that we would do, but that's what it takes. You got to go out on the edge, and you got to take chances and take some risks, because people are not looking for 9 to 5, are they, buddy?
No, and we certainly didn't give it to them. But you got a history of that in the wrestling business, and for the listeners, I'm sure that most of the people going to be listening to this know about Rob Fuller, know about Jimmy Golden, know about Colonel Parker, but let me go back. A lot of people don't realize what a great babyface you were. I mean, man, you were blood and guts selling.
Yeah. Well, in the young days, and the old school, that it wasn't hard to be able to tell where your good guy was and your bad guy. It got to where today it's a struggle to figure out who the good guy or the bad guy is, and you can determine it any way you want to. But back in the day when I started, that if you're going to be a good guy, boy, you better be darn straight babyface, one hell of a guy and a sweet person and get along with everybody and a lovable character. And, you know, you never played with any of the other side. There's nothing about you bad. You might as well be the greatest person that ever came down the road and raised by the greatest father that ever was and love everybody in the world the way the good Lord means for you to. And you sell that every week on TV, and if you could do that and do it right, then you was considered a good baby face. And I just lived by it, that I said, you know, I'm going to be a success, and if I'm going to be a success, and there's nothing I liked better than being able to work with somebody who was exactly the opposite. And I got that a lot of times, you know, as a young guy working with Jerry Lawler throughout Tennessee, because he was such a great heel, such an arrogant, sorry, into himself, no good son of a gun, that it was easy to compare real good with real bad. And, you know, and I liked that, boy. I liked any time I could get with a good heel and really have an opportunity to show my character as a great guy, raised right by a great mom and dad, and all just an old cowboy from the farm, and it worked out well for me.
Well, let's talk about your dad. Buddy Fuller he was a tough son of a gun, if there ever was one that walked down the pike, and one of them old school shooters extraordinaire. And he kind of brought you and your brother Ron up right with the wrestling business, didn't he, Rob?
Well, you know what? We always had a theory. Dad had it for anybody that worked for him, and you know, Dad promoted for more than he did wrestle. And his theory was he didn't use anybody on top or in a good situation to make money if they weren't able to take care of themselves. And I mean, by take care of themselves, I mean walk down the street and there ain't nobody coming down that street. If you're his main man, you're wearing his belt as a champion. There's nobody you're ever going to bump into any place that's ever going to be able to bar or beat you in the ring or ever show him up as having a champion that wasn't less than a champion. And Dad did the same thing with me and Ron. As a matter of fact, he went to extremes with it. That you know, we wrestled in school, and he always had a ring in the backyard, and he had his old time shooters around, and you know, Charlie Carr and some of the guys. Dad, when he had his wrestling business, his referees were some of his toughest guys, and they were older guys. Nobody knew that. But if you came in and you wanted to try out for wrestling, Dad would never turn you down. If you came to the wrestling match and you said, hey, I'd like to be a wrestler, I'd like to try out, and Dad'd say, hang around till it's over. When everything's over, we'll give you a tryout. And he had these referees like Charlie Carr and some of the other old timers. I say Charlie Carr because he'd stretch my butt so many times when I was growing up. But he'd say, listen, you know, before you wrestle anybody, you know, I got this referee here, and we'll give you a tryout with him. And generally, he'd get the answer from the guy, oh, he's 60 years old. He's just a referee. Dad said, well, that's the point. You know, just somebody you can just kind of get a start with. We'll see how you look. And, you know, then Charlie would just rip them all apart. And if they ever got to Dad, you know, if it ever was a guy that, you know, was such a smart aleck that Dad said, I want to do him myself, that he always came out with stitches. You know, it was a given. It was a given that you're going to scream 15 times in 30 seconds at the top of your lungs, and you're going to bleed, and you're going to give up some stitches, and you know, and he just had a lot of pride in the wrestling business, and you know, you'd never question the wrestling business around him without having to pay for it, and that he stood by it. And, you know, like Eddie Graham and some of the other second fathers of mine. I always called Eddie Graham the second father of mine. He was Dad's best friend and the toughest son of a gun I ever knew in my life. Real gentleman, but don't ever question their business, or don't ever certainly slander their business. He raised me and Ron when we were growing up. If I was in high school, and Dad would get a guy, a block layer, or a guy working in the garage or something, weighs 300 pounds, he's 40 years old, and he wants to be a wrestler. And Dad would bring these guys over to the house, and he'd just say, hey, son, hey, get the boy out here. And we'd go out in the front yard, and he'd say, hey, take your shirt off, man, we're going to wrestle this guy. I could be going off on a date, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, going off on a date, and Dad would show up in the truck, and he'd say, hey, I got a guy here I want you to wrestle. I'd say, hey, I was just leaving to go on a date. Take your shirt off, wrestle a guy first. And my brother, he was the same way, but but I would just, I'd just look at these guys, and I just go, you stinking piece of garbage. I don't want to do this. And Dad would just say, I won't take you but a minute. Just give the guy a little try out here, and things. I wonder, why don't you try him out yourself? I'd never say that because he'd jerk a knot in me, but I would just literally eat them alive. And even guys that were a lot older than me and a lot stronger, but they didn't really know what they were trying to do or trying to achieve, and I'd let some strong guy like that just squeeze me till he was out of gas. And then, as you know from wrestling, when you're out of gas, you run out of air, you got nothing left, and then, boy, I'd just tear their guts out. And it's just, we was brought up that way and taught that way, and we loved wrestling, and couldn't wait to the day to get into the ring and be able to work. I know every night I went to the ring, I'd take a 300-mile to the show, and the trip doesn't bother me at all because I'm just dreaming of getting there and being able to do my thing for the people. I just said, gosh, dog, when I get there, I'm going to be the greatest thing they ever saw. And I was raised that way.
Well, it's funny to hear you say these things, Rob, because I can remember you and I riding in the car and making a lot of long trips. And you would tell me those stories about you were getting ready to go out on a date, and Buddy would say, come on, get in here, boy. You'd say, I know good, dirty so-and-so son of a gun. And Cactus Jack was just on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about old Rob Fuller, and we talked about hard ways, taking that nut, busting that eye.
Oh, gosh. Dad was he was a firm believer. You never worked for my dad and made big money unless you were able to give up the hard way. And, and guys like this, they'd bleed the easy way, but the fact is somebody putting a few stitches. And my old man, he's the greatest guy. He had the way he'd get everybody to do it, even guys that would never allow you to punch their eye, bust their eye, or do something. But Dad would talk them dadgum into it. He just had a way for it. I remember one time, and I got to tell you this story, that I was up I'd gone up for Nick and Roy, and this is when Jarrett first got the book up in Tennessee, and they were using me extremely well, and I was making more money, but I wasn't used to any of that. I'd come from Florida, and I was making $300 a week, and they was using me on the first matches, and wasn't getting any push. But I got up there, and I was doing just great. I was making $1,200-1,500 a week, and back then, in the early '70s, that's a lot of money. And Dad and Eddie called and had me and said they wanted me to come down to Florida. And when they did, Nick told me, he said, hey, they want you down to Florida. They want a TV. They want to do a TV. And I was like, son of a gun. I was so happy, jumping up and down. And I got the air flight and flew down to Florida and went in the dressing room. I'm sitting downstairs with all the boys at the old sportatorium. And Eddie comes in there and he says, what are you doing here? What are you doing in here? And I say, I'm getting dressed, ready for the... He said, no, not here, because this is hot and uncomfortable. He said, come up to my office. He said, come upstairs. I got a dadgum air conditioner up there. And I'm son of a gun, boy. So he takes me out from all the guys there dressing. I'm just a young punk, and takes me up to his office in his big luxury couch sitting there in front of his desk. And he says, "You dress here, boy, in the air conditioner and everything. Everything's good." So he goes over working at his desk, and Dad comes in. And Eddie says, "God, no." He goes over and he sits down next to me. And Dad comes over and he sits down on the other side of me. And I got Eddie on one side and Dad on the other. And Eddie says, "You know what, buddy?" He says, "I got to tell you." He said, "God dog it." He said, "You got the goddamn best kid here." He said, "I'd imagine that son of a gun coming down here to work for us and the deal." And Dad said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, kid." He said, "We're going to bust you a hard way." And I just like, what? He was like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." Eddie said, "You can't get anybody in this friggin' business to do anything for us anymore. You need a real friggin' hell of a man. You got to call in them buddies, boy, to do the job." And they're polishing me all up, like, "Hey, boy, what a kid. What a deal. What a deal. We're going to bust you, So I'm like, well, I can't say no. God,
of course you can't.
Yeah, so I go in, and of all the guys in all the world, they had an angle going with Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk, and the Funk's had a bounty on his head, so he wouldn't get to the match with Terry. Dory at that time was a world champion, and they were going to put the belt on Jack later on, so they was really pushing him, but they wanted a young babyface guy to come in and wrestle with Jack for about 15 minutes on TV. Good, hard wrestling. And back in Florida, back in those days, that's everybody wrestled, and they wanted a good, hard 15 minutes, and then they wanted me to try to backstab him. And they wanted Jack to say, "Well, this is the last token. This is the last time I'm ever going to put up with this." And so he busts me up. But Jack, he don't know how to bust anybody up. He's never, he's a tough guy and the greatest wrestler who ever got in the ring. But, Dad's good. He could bust your eye, boy, with one shot. And Monroe could bust your eye with one shot. And Galento, and there's so many guys that were tough son of a guns, and they could really bust you up without hit you one time and it's over. But in this case, Jack must have hit me 10, 12 times. It was a nightmare because
and wasn't getting you busted, I bet.
He wasn't. No. He wasn't getting the job done. So, but finally he did. Finally he cut me in my temple of all places, and I went and got my stitches. But I was all just swelled up and beat up, and I went back to Tennessee for Nick. And when I walked in the office, Nick Goulas looked at me and he said, "What in the hell happened to you, boy?" And I say, Nick, they had me down there to bust me a hard way." And Nick said, "God, dog." It was like Nick was my father, and my dad didn't even know me. Nick was like, "Them no good son of a guns. Dog, God, you'll never go back, kid. God, dog, I can't believe they did that to you." He just made such a fuss, and I was like, gosh, I don't know which one of you guys is my old man. I'd rather have Nick. I heard so many bad things about Nick, but I said, heck, I believe I like him better as a father than I do the other one. So,
oh my God, that's gold, Robert. That's absolute gold.
I got to tell you one more. This is the Hardway story, and this is
yeah.
I'm in Griffin, Georgia, and I'm going to school at this little junior college thing there, and close to Griffin, and my dad says, I'm wrestling there on Saturday nights, and I'm in Griffin, and they're using me pretty good because I'm the local hometown boy, and I'm getting treated better there. And so Dad tells me during the week, he says, listen, he said, I'm going to book you with Luke Graham. And Luke's great big 6'5", 300-pound son of a gun. He's going to bust your eye on Saturday night. and then you can wear your stitches and stuff back to the school when you go back to school. He said, I think it'd be good for business. And so I said, well, if you got to, you got to. So go ahead and do it. So we go there, and we get to the show, and Luke Graham tells him, he says, listen, buddy, he said, good-looking kid. He said, I don't want to do that. And Dad said, I don't give a damn what you want to do. You do what you're told. You know, you're booking in here, you're booking, I'm doing damn booking, you're going to go in there and you're going to bust this kid. And you better bust him good, too. And so we go in and do the match, and he, same deal. He hits me. And he hits me 3-4 times. Hard as he can. And I get a big mouse on my eye, you know, just big, fat eye. I can't even see out of it, but no blood. But no blood's coming. So Luke says, I've had it. I'm not going to hit you anymore. And I was damn glad to hear that. I said, I don't want to get hit anymore. So we go back into the dressing room after the match, and he beats me in, and I got the big fat friggin' eye, and we go back in the dressing room, and Dad's there, and man, Dad is friggin' mad, and he cusses out Luke Graham, and he tells him, you big overgrown fat ass piece of and he tells him, he says, God dog, he said, you couldn't bust a friggin' egg, you big sack of crap. And he goes on, and I'm sitting there listening to that, and I'm going like, oh man, I hate you doing like that. Then he starts on me, you know, you ain't worth a shit either, you ain't no good either. And he starts on me, and I'm just like, well, you know, dare say we did our best. Oh, you don't want to go that far, man. Just kind of try to blow it over and leave it alone. So we get a shower, and we go out, and I'm riding with Dad back home. I'm still living at home. And we go to the car, back of the car. Dad opens up the trunk, and I put my bag in, and Dad slams down the trunk and hits me in the eye hard as he can. And Dad could bust you, boy, but he hits my bad eye, the big swelled up mouse that Luke had done, and dadgum, he didn't get it either. He just hit me hard as he could, and goes, gosh, dog, and I had so much respect for Dad, and I was scared to death of him, but I said, I'm going to kill you. Only time I ever had my dad back off, he started around the car, and I was following him around the car, and I was going to tear into him. And he's telling me, oh, you tried to do the deal, you never done the deal, You know, he's telling me, he says, you think, hot dog, he said, hey, it's not even hurting anymore. It's not even hurting anymore. It ain't even hurting. And he keeps backing off. He keeps giving room to me. Till it gets humorous to me, because I'm like, you sorry, no good son of a gun to smack me like that. And we get in the car and we go home. My mom there, and she says, oh, good Lord, what happened to you? And I say, well, I had a deal there at the match, and then that stinking son of a gun over there hit me. Oh, well, he said that. And I said, you know, the funny thing about that, Mr. Badass over there, the Dad said, you be careful, boy. He's like, I'll get you before you go to bed. I was like, oh, no, let's let it go. But that's another Hardwood story. It didn't happen, but I got the living crap beat out of me that night. And I went to school. I looked really the part, man.
That is absolutely treasure. You know, thanks for sharing that. And I want to point out that Mick Foley made the point that, you know, because of riding with you in the car and listening to your stories of your dad and the hard way and how you bust an eyebrow like Sputnik Monroe or Buddy Fuller and those guys did it, that's why he adopted the hard way. And he told a story of trying to do Tommy Dreamer and bust him on TV for a promotion that won up in Philadelphia, and he couldn't get it done. And then he said he did it again with John Cena, and he wanted Cena to hard way him, and he said that Cena, punched him so many times that he had that big mouse and that black eye, but he gave, all the glory to Rob Fuller and the story of the hard ways, and our listeners, are pretty smart to the way things go now, but those old-time promoters and shooters like Buddy Fuller, they made you a man.
There's an art, man. There's an art to busting up a guy. That my dad, he could get in and give you a tryout if you want to get in and just he'd say, I'll give you a tryout in the ring, and he'd go in and he'd lock up with you, and he'd just butt you right over your eye lobe. He'd headbutt you, but he'd do it like a mistake. Like he'd lean into you and he'd get you. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he'd say, "I'll be danged, son of a gun, you got a little nick there." Then he'd back off and he'd lock up again, and then he'd just take his elbow on the other one, and he'd just catch you right across with the other one. Just perfect. Bang, elbow right to your eyelid. Gosh, dog, now you're cut on both sides. He could just bang, just like that, he could just cut you. It was like an old, you heard of the old fighters in the old days, and they'd do that. They wanted you, maybe you could beat them in a fight, boxing, and so they knew if they could get you bleeding, cut you up bad enough, they'd stop the fight. And so they'd headbutt you when they could, and they'd do things that they could and they knew where to do it to give you the most serious cut. And my old man was a genius at that, and so was Buddy Monroe. Some of those guys that in the old days worked with Dad, and Eddie Graham, he was a natural, man. Him and old Valentine, the original Johnny Valentine, and they'd bust one another, and then, but they knew how to do it. And the Dad had, he'd brag. He'd tell me, he'd say, hell, I don't know what you cut yourself or whatever you're doing. But hell, it's a lot easier. I just go ahead and nick you a little bit, like, yeah, you keep your nicking to yourself, man. But he'd say, it said it's no more than a little bee sting. It's no more than a little bee sting. I'll have you 8 stitches. You won't even know what happened. I said, well, I'd just as soon, you keep it to yourself if you don't mind. But I saw him do it to so many guys that he was good at it. And he had a theory. He said in his head he knew how to do that. And he would say, boy, anytime I ever did that to anybody, and trying to teach me and Ron about fighting and different stuff, and he'd say, anytime I ever did that, I knew that there was an easy way or a hard way. And the easy way was first time. And that if it had to go twice or 3 times, then it was a dang sure hard way. And he said, I made sure that we got her done the first time. So them guys, that really did that right, they put everything in it, buddy, and they knew what they were doing, and they cut you up quick and fast. And
well, I wish we had more time to talk about that, but I want to talk about you and other aspects of wrestling business that you were just terrific at. One thing that comes to mind right away, Rob, is that, you were an experienced guy that took young guys like myself or Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, or Steve Austin, or Tommy Pritchard, all the that were just getting started, and you would school us, those rides to towns. You would tell us how business was done back then, how it should be done now. You never, ever minded trying to help young guys get along. You. And, you did. I mean, it's amazing what you did for Jeff Jarrett's career. And
I went in with to work with Jeff as a request of his father. That there wasn't anybody that was willing to put him over, let alone do anything to try to help him, because part of it was jealousy by saying, well, your old man's pushing you and stuff. But I understood all of that because I was my dad's son, and I got to push, probably a little quicker than a lot of guys did. So I kind of understood that. But I found out from Jeff and going in and working with him, that he had a great deal of potential, and he was a tough kid, and he was able to give it up. And I didn't show him a lot of mercy. What I did do for him is I put him over sometimes, and I didn't have to do that for sure, but I did it, and saying that, hey, I believe this kid's got a real future. He needs to put on some weight and this and that. But I overlooked all of that. I figured out how to work the match and make the match work, where my extra weight and being older, that I had this quick moving, fast, drop kicking, flying kid that was just all over me like a covey of quail, and I couldn't handle him. At times I just couldn't handle him, and I'd get him nailed down, and then I'd just beat the living crap out of him, and he'd sell like crazy. And it reminded me of the old days when I did the same thing myself. I said, this kid's got a whole lot of good sense about it. Where I've been in the ring with a lot of guys, and I know you had too, that, I just real quick, I know I used to go out to Texas when you and we were out there, and I'd work with Von Erich, with Kerry a lot. And that, I'd have a problem with that because Kerry would not, he'd not let you get any heat on him. He just wanted to just beat the living hell out of you, beat on you, and beat on you, and beat on you, and beat on you, and then, and he knew me well enough. I'd been around. He had enough respect for me to know that, I'm going to have to listen to this guy some. And I would always tell him, I'd say, hey, you don't do nothing till I tell you. And I was one of the only guys that could get that out of him.
That's true. That's absolutely.
Yeah, one of the only guys I'd say, listen. And then he'd say, and I'd say, here's what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And he's sitting there chewing his fingernails because he's thinking, oh, hell, you're going to do all that to me? Yes, I am. And I say, and you're not going to do a damn thing about it until I tell you to. And then when I do, I'd say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I said, man, I swear to you that when I say go, man, we're off to the friggin' races. You can kick my butt 14 ways to Texas, and I'm just gonna be all over the floor for you, man. But you're gonna have to wait on my call for that. And I didn't have that problem with with a guy like Jeff Jarrett, that he'd listen. And then I knew, boy, we're getting this thing right. And then I tell him, come on, kid, fight me some. And he'd start to fight, and I ain't going to give in 1 inch. But I'd say, fight on, keep on, till the people would realize he's in great shape. He's able to keep going. Boy, he's a fighting dadgum machine. And then I start to weaken. And, boy, when the people see that in the crowd, they get to the edge of the seat. And they're, God, dog, look at that. He's weakening. The kid's getting to him. Well, it never could have happened if he didn't listen and let it get to that point where we could take him there. And then in the end, we don't want them on the edge of their seat. You know well as I do. I want their asses out of that seat, standing, and I don't even care if they come to the apron of the ring, pounding on the apron. I want the absolute 100% most I can get out of this situation. And Jeff would listen well enough, and he was in good enough shape to fight that we'd get her done, man. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, the point you made about guys not wanting to work with Jeff, I can remember so well, because when Jeff first started, he was maybe 165, 170 pounds, and he was getting a push, at a young age, and maybe the wrestlers thought he didn't deserve it. But, it took somebody like you to come in and to really school the boy to show him how to put matches together and be a babyface. And you had great matches with him. And I remember Kerry Von Erich, you know, watching you wrestle Kerry. And, of course, I've gotten in the ring with Kerry and Kev many, many times. And they were just like wild Indians, you know. You never knew what the hell they were going to do. And they didn't know. You'd have to beat them down, and, you know, you would do that. But they would, would listen.
And in my case, like you said, they would listen. That I could say, hey, this is friggin' bullshit. But you know what we're doing here, we're doing 10 times the work that it takes to get this job we're trying to get done, and about half of what we're doing we can do right. And you don't have to kill me so doggone bad, and I don't have to kill you so doggone bad. But there's no reason that we come in here and go to war. If you'll just listen, and we'll you know, I'll guide us through this thing, and it'll make sense, and the war will be a little bit easier, and in the end we'll have a better outcome from it. And you know that's what wrestling is anyway. Everybody knows today, you know, that's what makes a match. It's two people that have that chemistry, and they paint a Rembrandt for you. Is what happens. And you go in there and you buy the ticket and you just get a dadgum Rembrandt picture painted for you, a Michelangelo dadgum picture painted for you, you know, and you walk out of there going, good gosh almighty, was that great.
Yep, you're exactly right. I'm going to remind you of things, Rob, before we move on here. One time we were wrestling up around Bristol somewhere. I remember it was during the Continental days. We brought Kerry in, and we were having good crowds all up in Knoxville and drawing really well. And you were wrestling Kerry in a singles match, and you'd had some stomach problems that day, and we couldn't talk to the other wrestlers because we were in, it was like a big high school gym, and the place was just packed, and you sent across for him not to slam you because your stomach was hurting. Son of a gun,
you're going there.
Locked up you up and slammed you. You remember what I'm talking about?
Was it when I crapped my britches?
Yeah. You sure did.
Might not have been
you rolled out that ring and come back to the dressing room, told Jimmy, go and get the hell out there and wrestle that son of a gun.
I guarantee you, man. Oh, gosh, that stomach ache was probably from about 14 beers and 114 degree laying in the sun by the poolside at dadgum Dallas that day. It doesn't make any difference, man. Don't be trying to slam me or do nothing to me because I'm kind of weak in my stomach. Well, I might have crapped my pants, but that was one of them stories, too.
Man, I've laughed about that 100 times. I mean, you said, that freaking idiot, I told him not to slam me.
Oh, gosh, buddy.
I'm sorry. I had to bring that up. And then
the only time. I got to give you another before you go to it. This just works in so well. I was working for Turner Broadcasting, and we worked up to the 6-man cage match elimination, where when a guy loses, he has to come out of it and all of this thing in it. And I'm Colonel Parker, and I've got my guys. I forget who the 3 guys were, but I had Ming out there with me as my bodyguard on the outside, and my boys were against Dusty and the 2 nasty boys. And the deal on the end was that they were to beat all of my guys, and then and then if they won, I had to go into the cage. That was the deal. So I had to go into the cage. So they're beating my boys, and I'm out there having an outrage on the outside of the ring. This is a pay-per-view, one of the ones we did for Turner Broadcasting, and the deal was, on the end, they're going to get me in there. And they're going to lock the door on the cage, and Ming is going to be like a wild monkey just trying to climb the cage, and they're hitting his fingers and stuff. They're knocking him off the cage, and he's just going crazy because he's my bodyguard. And Dusty's going to put the figure 4 on me, and one of them's going to drop elbows on me while the other one keeps Ming off the ring. Anyway, it's over, and they get me in there, and they run me in, and they double damn clothesline me, and they do all their stuff to me, and I'm in my white suit and stuff, and Dusty puts a figure 4 on me, and the Nasty Boys take turns dropping elbows on me, and Dusty's got the figure 4. I got to set up a little bit because my leg's hurting, from it. I got to set up a little bit, taking pressure off my leg, and they're just laying it on me. And so I think that I shit my pants. But I'm not sure, but I got this white suit on. I messed my britches. So I they beat me up, and they leave me laying there, and they get out of the cage, and Ming goes crazy, and he climbs over the top of the thing, and he gets in. And this is a tense moment now. I mean, everybody is just watching the show so closely, so tense, and I'm there, and I'm dead. I'm laying on the mat, and Ming comes in, and he gets right down in my face. His eyes are not 3 inches from mine, and he's pulling me up, and he's serious. He's looking at me, and he's going, "Mr. Parker, you know Ming. Do you know Tonga?"
Yeah.
Well, you know what a great guy is.
Really,
you know what a great guy. Yeah. So he got me by the shoulder, and he's this big gorilla of a son of a gun, and he's almost tears in his eyes because he's serious. He's like, "God, did they hurt you?" And he picks me up, and he's trying to take me in his arms, and he's got his face too close to mine. He's looking right at my face like this, and he's saying, "Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker." And I look up at him, and I say, "Oh, Ming, I shit my pants." Like they're right there, right just inches from mine. And when I say that, he starts to laugh, and I say, "You big dumb shit, don't you laugh. Don't you laugh." And he can't keep from laughing because he's like, "Oh, you got me with that so bad." Right, it's just, he's so sentimental right in my eyes, and I go, "Oh, man. Oh, God, I shit my pants."
Oh, my God, that is a great story.
Gorilla, and he's supposed to be serious about me, and he's cracking up, friggin' laughing. And I'm telling him, "You big, dumb jerk." Stop that damn laughing.
I can hear you now. I swear I can. Oh, my God. I've got tears in my eyes from laughing.
Oh, gosh.
I do. We're going to talk about Colonel Parker, but I want to remind you one last thing that just kind of ties into the points you were making about the fans and the heat and how to get them there and everything. But we were in some small town. It was to the west of Birmingham, about 60 or 80 miles, and the crowd was just
Meridian or something like that. Yeah.
It was packed, Rob. And I wrestled Adrian, and then you and Jimmy wrestled the Southern Boys, and the last match was Tommy Pritchard and Wendell Cooley. Well, you had just come out of the ring, and I was taking my stuff off. I'd gotten out of the shower. You hadn't even you'd taken your boots off. But do you remember where I'm going with this?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, the security guard runs back there and says, "There's a riot out here in the ring, fellas." And you just, you said, "Who are they after?" And the guy said, "Wendell Cooley." Well, Wendell was the babyface. And we were like, "What the hell is this?" And you said, "Oh, well, Tom will get it settled down." Well, Jesus Christ. Well, that policeman walked out, and we're just kind of looking at each other laughing. And then they come running back in there, man. They said, "It's serious. It's serious." So you said, "Oh, hell, boys, come on, let's go out there." Well, what had happened is one of the fans started saying something to Wendell, and Wendell was the babyface, so instead of letting Tom get the heat back off of him, Wendell started, cussing him. Yeah. Well, hell, all those good old boys from Alabama, you know, they were all friends and everything, and one of them hit the ring after Wendell, and then everybody started hitting the ring. Well, you said, let's go out there, boys. We got out there, and we are fighting, and I mean really, literally fighting, throwing punches, kicks, everything, and fans.
To get him out of there. To get him out.
Yeah, trying to get Wendell, you know, just to stop and get it all settled down. Hell, I look up, man, I'm bumping into someone. I turn around to hit him, and it's Adrian Street. I just wrestled him.
Well, we all, you know, you had to dump it out.
You remember that?
Yeah, you had to. What you had to do, you go out there and try to steal the heat off of Wendell so you can get his ass out of there and not have too much trouble with it. And you know, in the dressing room, we knew we had to do that. It's probably Wendell was running around with the guy's girlfriend or something. The truth would have been known. Who would ever know anyway? But you know, Wendell Cooley, the way he was, he's a good-looking young boy, and he had 1,400 girlfriends. That I wouldn't be surprised if the guy wasn't trying to get him for that. I don't know what it was, but yeah, any type of deal like that.
I remember that so well, you know, and you were like, this dumb son of a.
Yeah. Oh,
you know, you were mad. You were really mad. You said, I just can't believe this.
I don't like
crazy
to have
son.
to do that kind of work. I don't like to have to do, you know, when it comes to that, I'm a lazy son of a guy. I don't want to do that kind of work. I say, dog it, man. Gosh, dog. I sat around the dressing room. I saw dadgum, who was it, Shamrock and Curtis Thompson, when I was doing the booking in South Carolina there for them for a while in the South Atlantic Wrestling, and they got in a fight in the friggin' dressing room. And here's two dadgum demons. And they're after one another, and I'm the booker, and the guys are all sitting around the dressing room there, and they're saying, they're looking at me, and they're saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like they're wanting me to get up and break them up. You know me, brother. I'm sitting there on the bench, and I look, they're going at it, and I say, hey, boys, that's concrete you're on. And the guys just looked at me like, that's all you're going to do? I said, you damn right. That's all I'm going to do. I thought, hey, watch out for the concrete, boys. You can get broke up on that stuff. I said, pretty soon one of them's going to take the other one down, and they'll blow up, and then we'll do something. But I'll be dang if I'm getting up and doing anything about that. I ain't even bitching about it because they might slug me.
Well,
them riots and fights and stuff like that, I'd say, oh, man, if I'm around, I go, oh, what in the hell is that? God, dog. I hated to get up and do anything about it.
Exactly. And really, it wasn't your place to really have to do anything about it. If it came down to it, I mean, you were in the territory,
Bookers
but my
don't break
God.
people up. Oh, gosh, I'd say, these guys, gosh, dog, man, they're just pretty good fighters.
Yeah. People don't really realize how many territories that you booked in or were, you know, on a committee that was booking. Tell us how. Right off the top of your head, Rob, I know you booked in Continental, I know you booked in Florida and other places, but give us a rundown of all the places off the top of your head that you actually worked the shots in.
When I was a young kid starting out, and I had been in the business probably a year and a half, and I was down here in Florida, and Dad and Eddie came in and they said, hey, we got you, boy, hell of a spot. You're going to go to work for Roy Showers out in San Francisco. And I looked at him and I thought, heck no. I don't want to go to California. And they were like, oh, you old country bumpkin, get your butt up. You're going to California. I said, oh, hell. So I went, and Dad and them, they had me booked. They had me set for like 6 weeks later. And I went and I called Billy Golden, Jimmy Golden's dad. And he was booking a little deal in Montgomery. And I told him, I said, Billy, I said, you know, they're using me down here or something, but I hear your business is struggling some and stuff. And I said, I think I can help you. if you give me a $500 guarantee, I'll come in and I'll book and I'll work and I'll do everything in your territory. And at that particular time, Billy was having a little problem drinking, and he was on the booze pretty heavy, and things were going really bad. And he said, "Yeah, Rob, come on in." So I advised Dad like a few weeks later, and Eddie and the guys. I said, "I'm not going to California." And boy, they pitched a bitch. What are you going to do? Because we ain't going to have you here. You're going to go. You ain't going to shortcome us. And I told them Billy Golden, and they just oh crap. So I went first booking job. I went in to work for Billy, and we put Billy on a bus to go up to Dyersburg, Tennessee, and live with the family and get himself straightened out. I went into his TV because I had seen Eddie's operation and Dad's operation in Florida, and I went in his TV and I said, "Hey, where's your format?" "Well, we don't have a format. Billy just writes stuff down on a paper." "Oh, hell with that." I said, "So doggone it." So I drew him up a format, added all their commercials and all their interviews and all the stuff I needed, and I started having camera guys come to the matches and shoot me stuff there so I could go back and use it on TV, and we lit the place up, and with pretty inferior talent, but we started really drawing some money, and Billy came back and he got all straight on the alcohol, and me and him got very close, Jimmy's dad and me, and we just really did great. And then Billy called Dad, and he told him what's going on, and they brought me back down to Florida, and they gave me a job working in the office there. And that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because if you worked around Eddie Graham and Louis Tilley and Dad and Leo Garibaldi and these guys that were just such great wrestling writers, you could learn so fast, and I wound up working in there. And then when I went to work, basically everybody that I went to work for, if I worked there a year, I had so many ideas. I was the kid that sat in the back of the class, and the teacher would say, "Hey, who knows that?" I'd always hand up. "Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And when you do that enough, guys look at it. The talent looks at it, and they say, "Oh, Rob knows. He'll tell you what to do." And then the promoters and the bookers start to say, "Hey, think about this guy doing work for me and running my business." And I never would. I had so much belief in myself. I guess Dad instilled that in me and Ron, that I'd just say, "Hell yeah, I can do that." And they'd say, "Well, what do you think we ought to do here?" "Well, why don't you do this?" Just always had something to offer. And because of that, I got a lot of booking jobs, and it went on from there. I booked for Jarrett. That I went to Ron's territory over in Knoxville when he ran his territory, and brought in Bob Armstrong and Jimmy Golden and Ricky Gibson and the Mongolian Stomper and Gorgeous George Jr. and Tony Charles and all these friggin' guys, and Joe LeDuc, and we set the damn place on fire. And then I wound up going down and wound up buying an interest in Alabama. We was running Alabama, and we spent 12 good years down there. We took part of these same guys, the same talent. Ron would book for a year, I'd book for a year. And then during that time, about 1984, Barnett came down, sat down in my bedroom, him and Ole Anderson. Ole Anderson was booking for him, and Barnett says he'd offered me booking job 20 times, and I'd always turn him down. And he came in, we went, had dinner, and he said, "We'll go in the back, we're talking." And he said, "I came to get you. I'll give you anything you want." And I made $5,000 a week in 1984 booking Atlanta. And I booked in there. Yeah, I booked in there around about a year, and work. I have to be honest with you. I didn't work well with Barnett's idea of top talent. His top talent was guys who all would like to have my job. And that I'm the type of guy that, listen, you know, if you want my job, and then if there's any discretion in the office about you having my job, then take it. Because I'll go home to Alabama, and I'd rather be living in my house and laying on the beach. You know,
right,
I'll have a big poolside.
Getting on that big boat of yours and going out on the ocean, right?
Yeah. And you know, Barnett's looking at me, and he's saying after about a year, and he's saying, gosh, he said, you just you're like short on ambition or something. And I say, hey, it's got to be easy. I said, boy, you know, it's like the old date or the old girl you're going to marry, man. If it ain't easy, you better let her go. And I say, you know, I came in here to run your territory, and your territory's doing good, and you're making good money, but I'm not going to kiss a whole lot of ass for nobody. I'm just going to do my job, and I'm going to go home, drink a beer, and lay by the pool. You know,
right. Mama's got a pot roast on the stove. You ain't got time to mess around with this shit, right?
You heard the deal, yeah. Later on, I went back to Atlanta, and I booked for them. I worked in their office when I was Colonel Parker, and they're working dadgum 10 hours a day in CNN, and I'm going, what in the hell is this? Eric Bischoff, he gave me this big contract. And you know, it says, well, you know, we want you to sit in our council, our booking council, and after a while, I realized booking councils, but I don't want to be a part of this. That we sat here all day long, we come up with 500 ideas, and we won't do any of them because this guy don't like it, that guy don't like it, this guy can't do it, that guy can't do it, that we can't even talk to our talent about something that we think is good because they say, well, this guy says he won't like it, that guy says he won't like it. Oh, gosh, so I'm sitting there one day, and we're supposed to get out early because we were going to go the next day on the road for 2 weeks. And so we were going to get out of the office early, and here comes a Gagne. Somebody comes in, and they says, hey, guys, they said, we're going to be here till at least 7, 8 o'clock tonight. And I said,
oh.
No. Yeah, I say, baby's got a pot roast on. And I went to the door and started to walk out the door. I said, baby's got a pot. I say, baby's got a pot roast on. I'll see you guys later. I never went back. They'd ask me all the time. They'd say, hey, where were you yesterday? I say, I was by the poolside. I said, what are you doing by the poolside? You're supposed to be at the at the office. We were there for 10 hours. I say, well, you poor son of a guns. And they say, well, what are you going to do? I say, well, I don't know. I say, well, were you going to come in tomorrow? I say, hell no.
You got a contract, right?
Yeah, I got a contract for it. And they're going, well, what are you going to do? I say, I'm going to the poolside. I got a few beers in the cooler. You know, Eric Bischoff never took my contract away. I stayed there for 4 more years. I worked on the same contract as in the office, and I never had any flack for it. I just flat quit. That was it. And I walked out of there, baby's got a pot roast on, and I ain't going to be late for it. And that's it, and I didn't go back.
That's unreal. I can't believe that. I just remember you saying that, you know, like, we were doing some different things at different places, and I remember you one time told me, say, yeah, baby's got a pot roast on, boys. I'm not going to be in on this.
I'm out of here.
I never heard that story before about that, but I mean, that's classic Rob
That's
Fuller.
One of the classic times that I used the dadgum baby's got a pot roast on. And it was true.
Right. I understand. I totally understand. But let's talk about Colonel Parker. How did that come about? Was that, it was perfect for you. It was perfect for you. But how did it come about, Rob?
I was working for Smoky Mountain Wrestling in Knoxville, Cornette and those boys, and just working 4 times a week and living the good life there. Same thing, beer by the poolside. It's all good. And Sid called me, Sid Udy, Sid Vicious, and And he said, hey, I'm going to make a move in Atlanta, and how about you and you go in as a team and you do the managing, Colonel Parker. And, I said, hell, that is great, man. So we go in there, and then they send me to a costume shop, and I pick up the outfit for Colonel Parker. But the pants didn't fit. They came way up above my ankles, but the rest of the suit fit. But they didn't have anything else, and I had to be on TV like the next Monday. Dusty was booking in Ole Anderson, and I went in the office to show Dusty the suit, and Dusty sees that, and he, Dusty Rhodes, man, he's a great guy anyway, but he fell out of his chair laughing. He said, hell, that's the best thing I ever saw in all my life. I had old brown socks and the dadgum socks almost showing to the top of the pants. And I said, it's no class. He said, we don't care about that, man. You'll be fine. You go do your thing. And I went in there for them. First show that I go in, they come to me and they hand me a paper, like 4 pages of paper, and it's scenario on my character and what I'm to say on the interview. And you know me, brother. Yeah, that ain't gonna fly. And I sat down there and I read that stuff and I go, crap, man. I just get up and I go to Dusty's office and I say, Dusty, what is this crap? He said, well, that's the way they do things around here, baby. He said, we do that shit around here. He said, they got the writers, and the writers write up the stuff, and then you go out there, baby, and you just say the stuff. It's real easy. You just do the thing, I say, bull crap, man. I say, yeah, so I say, I don't want to do this. And he says, Rob, what you got? And I say, all right, and I laid down my interview for him. He said, throw that shit in the garbage. Never. And if you went into Atlanta back then and the writers wrote your stuff and you threw it in the garbage, you didn't stay long because the writers had too much pull, too much strength, and they were too well respected by Turner Broadcasting. But I never read a line off those people, and that they just came to terms with it. The writers just said, hey, he's better than us, and they left it alone. And I became friends with them, and everything was good, and did great with Sid. But Sid started having some, he just started having some difficulties. He was trying to get too big, and he was doing tons of steroids, and Sid. He was way out there, and Sid wound up going in the office after a while and just saying I'd be better by myself, thinking maybe they'd get rid of me or that they wouldn't use me, and instead they decided that I was going to break up the Hollywood Blondes, Pillman and Steve Austin. And Steve Austin was going to go with me, and they were just going to dump Sid, and I would go with Steve Austin. And then that's when Sid went off to England and wound up stabbing Arn with the scissors at the elevator, and all that story, I guess. You heard that, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I heard. Well, I heard about that.
He got fired. He honestly he tried to kill Arn. And that came from Arn and Steve Austin sitting at a table in the bar, and Sid coming in, and Arn threw a drink on him because Sid was saying, both of you guys are a bunch of crap. I draw more money than you guys, and you'll never be anything in the business and all of this. And Sid took it very personal that I was about to go with Steve Austin, and he would lose his manager, but he's the one that went in and instigated that in the first place. And so anyway, Sid got fired, and I went on for 8 more years. Long story short, and during that time, then I booked in the office for 1.5 years, and the pot roast incident came up, and I was gone from that, and then I stayed 3 more years, and me and Sherry got the angle going between us and the marriage and all of the stuff, and it just wound up the greatest thing. I had more fun with Colonel Parker than all my years in the business put together. It was more fun. I went to more places. I traveled first class everywhere. I was treated like royalty. The company was really, really good to me, and it was a great time in my life.
Man, that's a good story.
They gave me Ming. They gave me Tonga, King Haku in New York, but Tonga, Tahiti, who they called him Ming, and he was my bodyguard for 2.5 years. And all he did, he went everywhere with me. And he and I were like brothers. He was the nicest guy I'd ever met in my life, and still today I just love him like a brother. I mean, he's one of the greatest guys I ever knew, and I was able to travel with him and be with him, and he took his job so serious. He bodyguarded, you know me, man. I'm out there working the people and having a good time, and he'd come over and he'd say, "Mr. Parker, maybe if you don't go so," I'd say, "Man, go sit down. Shut the hell up. God dang, I'm out here working, man." He's like, "Oh, I was just ready you didn't." But, oh, God, I said, "Now you're goddamn bodyguarding the president, right?" But he took his job very seriously, and that made it real, and it made it more fun, and it was just a great time in my life, man. I wouldn't take anything in the world for it. I made more friends working with Steve. I mean, my gosh, that you know when you see Steve do his reality shows that he does today, and even when he did his angle with Vince, and where he was just giving Vince hell every week in New York, and his gimmick was cussing. You know where he got that? Riding in the car with me. He was riding in the car with me, and I was like, "Oh, you saw me, blah, 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 blah." You know, it's always my deal. I drink too many damn beers, and I just raise hell in the car. And when I worked with guys and rode around with guys and traveled with guys for a while, they picked that stuff up. And Steve made a lot of money with it. When Steve was in Atlanta, I was working in the office, and when he left, I was managing him. I was managing him, and he was making the $250,000 contract, something like that, and he was leaving them, and he had another year on his contract, and so I'm telling Steve, "Hey, bud, like, gosh, you ought to do right. You ought to stay on your contract at least another year. Don't burn your bridges, old time stuff." And Steve went on to New York, and he didn't. Then next time I see him in 1998, he's making $15 million a year.
Right.
He'd look at me and he'd say, we'd be in the dressing room, and he would say, "Hey, y'all be careful about hiring that old Parker as your manager now." We'd get a big laugh about it, because I'd say, "Well, doggone it, I sure ain't got a clue of what's going on." I'm telling you, you ought to stay in Atlanta making $250 when you can move in here and make $15 million. I said, "Brother, just forget it ever happened." He's a great guy. Steve is a great guy. And we had a lot of fun running up and down the road, man.
Okay, Rob, man, those stories are absolute gold, and what I do with a lot of my listeners is I ask them about a certain person, and just right off the top of your head, give me one sentence about that person, okay?
Okay, that's kind of hard, one sentence.
Well, yeah. I know, but, we're time constrained here.
Yeah. Okay.
And with you and me talking, my God, we could go for 6 hours,
You know what? If you're not careful too many times, you just get great guy, but you go on.
You're right. Okay. Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, a wonderful person, greatest worker, just a super guy. Right now, you got me going. You asked me about Ric Flair. I got to tell you, man, I'm working with this guy in Mobile, Alabama. I've been off for 6 months. It's my brother's time to book in Alabama, and I ain't doing nothing but laying by the pool drinking beer, and they tell me they want me to work with Ric Flair in Mobile. And I say, I'm not in shape. I don't want to do it, but I go in and I'm going to work with Rick, and me and Rick, we're going to work 35, 40 minutes in the match, and about 30 minutes in, I'm dying because Rick is a pusher, man, and I tell him, hey, we got to go. I'm sick. So he says, well, I'll shoot you in, drop down, you go out and puke, go up under the apron there, the ring, and then come back in, and we'll finish. We'll finish the extra 15 minutes, and I say, jeez, I go out and I have my little vomit and all, and I come back in, and he's like, hey, let's go. That's work. I mean, that's work. He's like, man, you ain't ready, are you? I'm like, no, I ain't ready. I'm figuring on having a little night off here, and you're killing me. But that's the way Rick was, greatest wrestler that ever was in the ring, ready to get her done every night.
That's a good story. That's a good story. Next one, Jimmy Golden.
My old cuz.
Yeah.
Me and him been down every road, brother. He always had my back. He's a beer drinking buddy. Always.
Yeah, oh poo-poo, man. Jimmy Golden. I got to remind you this story real quick, and this is just Rob Fuller, man. This is just absolutely Rob Fuller. But we were doing a show down around Memphis, and we were staying at the Admiral Bimbo Inn, and Jimmy and I were going to go out on town that night, and you and the Beast wanted to sit in the room and play cards. And I don't know what the deal was, but I said, yeah, well, y'all going to have to get out of my room if I bring a girl home. And you said, oh, you can't bring no girl home. And we got to jostling back and forth and ended up, I think, betting a 12-pack on whether I could or not. Where you going to
find that girl, man?
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes, I
remember that. And you said, wait a minute. She's got to be under 115 pounds.
I told you can't find no girl but a fat girl to ever go out with you.
Yeah, you didn't want to lose that 12-pack.
If you go out with a girl, she's going to be a fat, ugly son of a gun.
Well, it just so happened that I did bring a girl back to the room, and she was definitely less than 115 pounds. Old Rob looks up.
Oh, you are so full of crap. That girl weighed 200 pounds, boy.
Well, here's the funny part.
As you walked in, I had to crack up laughing. You sorry, no good, bring that big fat ass
you
in
said,
here.
Hey, honey, how much you weigh? she said, I weigh 110. And, she's got the funniest look on her face. And he says, oh, no way. You got to go about 120.
I ain't giving
That's
up
just Robert Fuller,
brother.
man. You said somebody get some scales. There's a 12-pack on this.
I'm not giving up the 12-pack. Yeah, the girl was much fatter than that, and I knew it. You fooling me,
God, man, you are too much. You are too much. Okay, how about Cactus Jack?
Oh, Jack, toughest son of a gun. My father would have loved him. There's your line.
Yep, that's what I remember you telling me. My dad would adopt that boy.
Oh, he'd have loved him. He'd have been another son for my father.
Yeah,
he sure would have.
Hey,
and
Ole
I took him as a brother too.
Yeah, I know you would. Ole Anderson.
Ole Anderson. God dog it, man. Gosh. You ever guys got into business, not a great friend. You just didn't trust him much. Not in the ring or out of the ring or nothing.
Right.
I kind of I kind of had that feeling a little bit between me and Ole, and today it's all different. We're all old timers now. I see Ole at some of these old autograph deals or stuff, and that's always, hey guy, how you doing? But when I was younger, I always looked at Ole. I said, I don't know about you, man. I don't know about. Real quick, do you have time for me to tell you a little story?
Yeah, man. I've got all the time in the world. I just don't want to keep you forever.
This is a piece of work.
Okay.
Sid takes me into Atlanta and for Turner, and Ole's and one of the bookers, and Dusty's one of the bookers, but Ole's the guy, he's handling the money, and so they mess up my check for about 4 weeks. They're $1,000 less on my check than it's supposed to be, and so they say, don't worry about it, we'll make it up. Don't worry about it, we'll make it up. Well, after about 4 weeks, Sid says, we're going to go in and see Ole. So Sid goes in with me, and we sat down, and Ole says, yeah, what's the problem? He's got a pencil there in his hand, and he's like, I'm a busy man. I don't have much time for you guys and all that. And I say, Ole, I got a, I said, I don't want to gripe. You guys are paying me good, but all of the money's not there. And he says, now, wait a minute. He says, hold on. Well, what is this about? And I said, you cut my check for, now it's like $4,000. It's $1,000 a week for like 4 weeks. And he said, let me tell you something. Now, he said, maybe you hadn't figured it out, but he said, in here, things don't just happen overnight. And he's pounding his pencil down on the table like that. And that Sid stands up and he just shakes. His eyes, his face, he just like a wild animal. He just gets up out of his chair and he just leans over on his table by his thing and he says, Ole, loud, he says, you give him his effing money now. Boy, and Ole goes, oh. He said, oh, wait a minute. He said, give him his money, I said now. And one of the guys, head guys from Turner Broadcasting came in, and they said, what's this all about? And I say, there's money owed. That Rob's owed money, and Sid's telling Ole, give him the money. And the guy looks at me, and he says, hold on a minute, Rob. And he has this guy come in from the back. Now, they owe me $4,000. And they had this bookkeeper come in. And they say, do we owe Mr. Welch money here? And he looks at me with a funny look on his face. And he says, how much do we owe him? And the bookkeeper says, I don't know. I guess around $10,000. Yeah, and so I'm sitting there, and Sid's there, and Ole's there, and all Sid's, and the Turner Broadcasting guy, I forget what his name is, and he said, Rob, he said, will it be all right if you come in here, this was like on a Friday, he said, will it be all right if you come in here on a Monday and get your check? And I said, sounds good to me.
Yep. Oh, not $4. Right?
They owed me $4,000. They gave me $10,000. I said, hey, you guys are good guys. Me and Sid, we went back.
I bet old Rob went home and sat by the pool and had a six-pack that night, didn't he?
Look, you ain't a kidding, man. Ole, just his eyes just was big around $50. Sid was going to kill him. And Ole's a tough guy.
Oh, yeah, legit tough.
He's a tough guy, but he just looked at Sid like, God, calm down. Sid was like, you friggin' think I'm going to calm down? I'll kill you. I mean, it was just like, whoa, and I just sat there. I just went, wow, hope this don't cost me my job. And then all this crap happened. The guy come in. I wound up getting $10,000 out of the deal, and I just said, wow, I like this place. You guys pay me like you want to.
Yeah, you're wanting 4 and you get 10. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Deal,
oh,
bud.
man. Oh, talk about tough guys. What about Paul Orndorff?
Paul, I just said, just a doggone sweet person. Comes from Tampa down here where I live right now. I knew Paul Orndorff when I was just a young guy. Me, Mike, Steamboat, Bobby Orton Jr., Dick Slater, all us guys are from right down around here, and Paul's one of them. But Paul was the athlete of the bunch, brother. I mean, he was a running back for Tampa, for University of Tampa, and that's when they were on they were in the top 25, and that Orndorff just a fantastic athlete, and one of those guys, gosh almighty, just a natural, dadgum, fabulous body, and able to talk, and a character, and just, I worked with him in the office too. He's a sweet person, great guy.
Yeah, that's good because, man, I'm telling you, he was one tough fellow that could go too. Yeah. Ricky Steamboat. What about Ricky Steamboat?
Ricky, I'd say probably. Now, I've been in the ring with some good guys, but for chemistry, me and him, I think probably the best worker I ever worked with.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know. I'm sure you were probably the heel even back then. Were you or were you not?
Yeah. I worked with Ricky, and I always like to call a match. I never like for anybody, when I worked heel, I never liked for anybody to call my match. But when I worked with Ricky, I didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Because he was a seller. He was a seller. He was one of the greatest salesmen you'd ever get in the ring with, and his gimmick was to sell. And that he wasn't a guy like Kerry, that you had to worry about not being able to get the heat before there's a comeback, that he ain't going to make his comeback till there's heat. And that you're going to have to turn it up and get the heat on him, or he's not going to be happy with you in the match. But he's one of those naturals. He's down here training in the school now for Vince here in Tampa. He's one of the trainers.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's one of the trainers, and I'll tell you what, they couldn't do any better.
No, you're absolutely right. He was babyface. He was as good as they came, and I mentioned how good that you worked as a babyface. I don't know if I've ever told you this or not, Rob, but growing up just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, I remember watching you as a young person. I was probably 9, 10 years old when I first saw Rob Fuller, and I thought to myself, even back then, man, that son of a gun's one tough monkey,
Yeah.
Because you bled a lot, you sold, and man,
I worked with Tojo. I bled every friggin' night, and I had no problem with it because I loved it. Because my whole thing, my whole persona, everything that I was getting those butts out of those seats. And that it was like going to a Toby Keith concert, man. You get off your butt and you stand there and you raise hell and watch him sing. That's the way I felt like my match had to be that every dadgum night. I had Tojo Yamamoto in there as my partner, and we worked against the Greens, Don and Al Greens with Steve Clemens, and the Von Bronners with Saul Wancroft, and we had the best dadgum tag teams in all the world, and I would just sell and sell and sell and sell and tag that dadgum Tojo. Tojo, chop, chop, double chop. The friggin' house would come down. I mean, it was just incredible. And that my whole persona was that I want this thing at such a fever pitch that everybody's standing and ate their fingernails off before I make that tag to Tojo. And that's why. That's
the way business was done, man. And you did it, boy.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate
you did.
That.
Well, you're welcome. When I cut my hair off and became babyface, I always tried to sell like you and Steamboat. And,
Yeah.
you know, the
Yeah.
people that I remember watching as growing up, and, you know, I always tried to do the same thing. I just wanted them to beat me half to death before I made that tag or made that comeback, you know.
You had to have a good heel. You know, you had to have a
did.
good heel. You had to have a good heel because, you know, you can't go around selling all over the ring for somebody that's not getting the job done. But, boy, you get a good one in there, and that's why with me and Ricky that, man, I wouldn't cut any short. I had Ricky, he's a serious young boy, too. When I went into Carolina, and I'll tell you a quick story about him. I was making interviews about him as a Tennessee stud, and I'd do the old, I come across the mountains from dadgum Tennessee into this stinking North Carolina, the home of the dadgum steamboat, Ricky's the Dragon Steamboat. And I say, listen, y'all all got it wrong. Y'all got it wrong that this kid is an imposter. He's a Japanese, back half Chinese, good-for-nothing squinch. And I'd hit him hard. You know, as much as you could get away with it, you know, it's even questionable. Can you say all that? And I'd say, listen, he's trying to hide behind some Hawaiian glamorous thing. Let's face it. Let's get right down to the ground where he's a Jap, no good, squinch, Chinese, worthless, and I'm gonna kick his ass. And when I'd get done doing the interview, Ricky wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't talk to me. And then he'd tell me, why you got to do that? And I'd say, well, do what? He'd say, well, you know, to me, you go a little too far. I say, what's too far? It's a work. He'd say, but he'd say, you know, and he's confound. You know, I'm like, confound. He's like, you're an asshole. Yeah, you know, he wouldn't tell me, you're an asshole. I'd say, well, maybe so. I had a lot to drink today. I had maybe too many beers at Poolside. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, my Lord.
He'd say, you know.
Well, you certainly rode that lightning bolt, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. I'd say, God dang, worthless, good-for-nothing squinch. And, he'd stand over there and go, squinch? And I'd just have more fun with it. So.
But, boy, I bet that made for some great matches, man, because you know that he was going to push you to your limit when you got in the ring, right?
I knew it. You know, the first 15 minutes of the match, I'm going to do high spots like a man never did in all of his life. I mean, a series of stuff, buddy. and you better be in shape because you're going to be up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, and that's before I ever think about getting any heat. So I had to get in the best shape I've ever been in my life, you know, when I was in Carolina working every night with him.
Right.
I had to really get in good shape. You had to lose some of that fat belly, and you had to lay off of some of that drinking. You know, you just, you're going to run out of gas.
Couldn't have the six-pack every night anyway.
Yeah, I had to be careful. You know, have some of it going home, Rob, not all day long before you get there. There you go.
Okay.
I always looked at it like, well, you know, you gotta get yourself kind of in the frame of mind to get all this done, man. And so, you know, I'd have a few beers and sometimes a whole bunch of beers, and then I just get. I always, heck, you know me, I'd get to the show and I just jump in mode. And the wilder and the crazier and the drunker or whatever, it didn't even make any difference. I just said, man, I'm going to do everything a man can possibly do tonight and make this thing work.
That's right. It didn't matter who you were working with or against. You had the ability to draw the best out of that person.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. I always felt like, you know, heck, we're going to go out here tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun.
That's right. And that's what made it fun working for you or with you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I meant when I booked, it was the same way. It was the same way. I always wanted guys to have fun. I mean,
yes, that's exactly right. No, I worked for you when you booked, and I can say that, you know, some ideas, man, you'd really kind of push it to the limit, to where I'd say, Rob, are you sure you want to do this?
Exactly.
He said, oh, man, we got to ride that lightning bolt, Beauty. We got to ride that lightning bolt. We'd sit out there by that pool during the day, soak up the sun, and play a little cards.
We're going to take some chances, and if we have trouble with the TV station, we'll talk our way out of it.
Right. Oh, my Lord. Jesus. Let me ask you a couple more names, and then we'll get out of here, buddy.
You go ahead.
How about Vince McMahon?
The workingest guy I ever met. The first guy at the show. He's supposed to be there at 1, and he's there at 12. And then the show's over at 11, and he's there till 12:30. That he's first guy there, last guy out every single night, never taking the easy way out. I got gonads like basketballs. That he's got some guts. The guy that he don't mind being hurt. That's been proven a lot of times. I tell you what, his work ethic scares me. when I was in there with Jeff, when I was in '98, and I was in there as Tennessee Lee with Jeff, and they were going to move me into the office, but I didn't want to go in their office because I lived down here in Florida at the time, and I was working a lot of days on the road with Jeff, and when we'd have a 13-day run or something, I'd get to come home to Florida, and I'd spend 4 or 5 days here, and then we'd go back on the road, and I hated those 13, 14 days on the road because I was getting wore out, and I loved Florida, and I loved the warmth and the beauty and being home and everything, and Vince came to Madison Square Garden. He talked to me about going in the office, and he thought I was crazy. He came to me and he said, an old country boy, and he says, hey, let me have a word with you. Yeah, talk to you a minute. All right, I go over, talk to him, and he says, oh, nice suit. Where'd you get the hat? All that. Well, I got the hat over here, the suit. He said, well, he said, we're thinking about picking your brain a little bit. He said, maybe having you up to the office some. He was trying to tell me we're going to take you away from Jeff. Jeff's going to get another manager, and we're going to fire his ass, But we're going to move you in the office. But he didn't say it that way. He just said, well, we'd like to get you up in the office, pick your brain some, And I said, well, Vince, I said, right now I got a pretty heavy schedule. I said,
oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he's looking at me like, what? And I say, I said, I'm on the road an awful lot. I don't get home to Florida very much. I said, but I said, one of these days when things are, a little lighter, I'm not so busy, I said, have me up at the office a couple of days, and heck, we'll throw a few ideas around. And
oh, my God.
He looked at me like, what? I just stood there with a big old grin, man, like, well, there it is.
Yeah, using Mama's Got a Pot Roast on to Vince McMahon. God, I'm absurd.
It was about the same deal.
Yeah.
And then they said, then we went to San Diego 6-8 weeks after that, and Jerry Briscoe, and he sprung on me, hey, he said, he said, you're only going to be working on the road 3 more days, and you're going to be going in the office. And I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, we're going to do an angle tonight to where these 2 boys you were going to manage the Southern Justice, you're not actually going to manage them, that they're going to wind up turning on you tonight and all, and you'll only make 1 more show, like next week you'll make a show in Montreal, and then you'll be moving into the office. And I say, not in my lifetime. I'm mad. I say, where's Vince? Where's Ross? Where's somebody? I said, boy, I'm going to go give him a piece of my mind. And I go and I find Vince, and I asked him, I said, hey, I said, I said, where I come from, when you get ready to do business with change a guy's position or whatever he's going to do, you talk to him ahead of time. I said, you just come to me tonight, say 3 days from now I'm going in the office? And Ben says, yes. I just say, well, that's not hardly the way I'm used to doing things very much. I said, you must have known that I'd be pretty upset by that. He said, I never thought about it. And I said, you never thought about it? He said, no. He said, I talked to you a long time ago about that. And I was like, when? It was like 6 weeks ago in the friggin' garden. Don't you remember? I said, oh, that's when I told you have me up a couple of days. We'll talk around some ideas. I said, man, you ain't on the right leg here. You know, we're not seeing eye to eye.
Oh, my God.
So I said, shoot. So the guy said, you know what? They paid. I was on their payroll for 3 more months. They just kept calling me every couple of weeks. And I'd say, I don't know. And they'd say, well, Rob, it's like booking Dothan. We just get together and sit down. I say, yes, but I have to move to friggin' Connecticut. Well, I said, well, it's not so bad. I said, not so bad. You got to be kidding me. Moving to friggin' Connecticut and then traveling to all your TV shows and laying down all your stuff and going back to the office and living in Connecticut. I said, hell, I'll die. I said, I'm too old for this. I'll die. I can't do this. I said, it's ridiculous. And they just call me back, 2 weeks later, and they'd say, Rob, are you ready? I'd say, not any more than I was 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and they'd say,
man.
They'd say, take a little more time. And then finally, Bruce Pritchard called me up, and he said, Rob, I got the worst news I ever had to give anybody. And I say, what? And he says, well, he said, we're going to have to give you a notice. You won't come up and work or nothing. I said, hell, that ain't bad news.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness.
Yeah, he was like, he couldn't, he was like, how could you even think you're not going to come and do this? And I just said, listen, Bruce, I ain't mad about nothing. I said, hell, y'all paid me for a long time. And I said, I'm doing great. Life's good. See you guys later. He was like, Jerry Briscoe called me. He said, Rob, he said, it's the greatest opportunity you'd ever have in your life. I said, well, I just don't hardly see it that way. I'm getting a little older, and I don't like being on the road that much, and I damn well ain't going to live in Stamford, Connecticut, and so there we are. So that was my last chance at doing any booking. I do a little booking job about 4 times a year for a little organization called Wrestle Birmingham in Birmingham, Alabama, and I go put their shows together and organize their stuff. And as a matter of fact, I even wrestle.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Still wrestling. I bet you can still do it too, because I've seen pictures of you. And you look like you're in great shape.
You know what? If I get to where I can't put the tights and boots on and look good in them, I ain't gonna do it. I'm done. I'm finished. But it's like me and Jimmy went to the last show we worked. Jimmy had a pair of sweatpants on and a little cut off in the t-shirt shirt on, and I put my gear on. And Jimmy said, "You gonna wear them tights again?" I said, "Hell yeah." I said, "I ain't going in the ring without my damn tights on, boy." And he said, "Well, hell, I ain't gonna wear that stuff." I said, "Well, you're kind of getting to the end of your deal, the end of your rope. And, we'll wear our tights, put our wrestling boots on until we can't do it no more, and then we'll quit." So there we are. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, man. Rob, I cannot thank you and tell you how much fun that I've had. We could have talked all night long, but I know that our listeners are absolutely going to be talking about this, and no telling how many messages I'll be sent, because there's only one Tennessee stud as far as I'm concerned, and that's Rob Fuller. And I thank you, my friend, for spending some time with us.
I had a ton of fun myself, boy. It's good to talk with you.
Yes, sir. I love you, my friend.
Yeah, same here.
And I will talk to you soon, and you just stay in that sun and have you a beer for me, would you?
I'm going to do it, boy. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do
Rob.
it. Had a lot of fun, buddy. We'll see you later.
That was fabulous, Doc. I never. How can I say it? I never get tired. How many times have you listened to that now?
4, 5, 6, maybe.
I'm on.
See.
Yeah, I think I'm on.
A pot roast on. Let's throw a pot roast on. Get us a cooler of beer together. Get by the pool, and let's talk about our favorite moments from this episode, pal.
Well, I've heard it 4 times. I think maybe 5, but I know for sure 4. When, everybody, you've heard us play the sound clip on BTT a few times now, or more than a few times, where we say, "I say, baby's got a pot roast on." Well, that's where that clip came from. This episode. But Doc, my favorite part, and I'll throw it to you and just give me your favorite parts, but mine, when he was in that WCW booking committee and he was supposed to be off from work and they're like, "Oh no, we're going to go in the office for a little while." He said they went hours upon hours, nothing's resolved, and nobody wanted to go home, and he was like, what?
No, here's the best part. They were going to stay till 7 or 8 p.m.
Right.
And that meant they were going to end up working 10 hours that day. So
when they were supposed to be off.
Right. How many hours do you and I work each day?
At least 9, if not,
right.
And oftentimes more.
But the idea of 1 10-hour day was too much for the stud.
No, that wasn't it. It was that he was going to be off that day.
Oh.
So he went. But the glory of that story was, he told them, "Nah, baby's got a pot roast on at home." So he was ready to get home to the pot roast. But then, that's not the best part. The best part was they were like, "Rob, we're meeting." He's like, I ain't coming. I'm not coming to the meeting. And they're like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I ain't coming. I'm not coming to the meeting. We talk all day, don't nothing get done."
And I never went. He says, "And I never went back."
Yes, he said, I never went back. He said, "Eric Bischoff never cut my pay. I still got my same check till the day I was gone." If that ain't awesome, I don't know what is. I say, baby's got a pot roast on.
There's some other things where I think the more I listen to it, I go back and I find new things. One of them is just, dude, you hear it on his brother's podcast about the Studcast about their dad and grandpa, but how many people's dads opened them up hard way with the trunk of a car when they were barely out of high school?
I know, good Lord.
He'd try to go on dates and his dad would be bringing somebody home who wanted to learn to wrestle. "Hey, take off your shirt. Give him a go in the front yard."
Yeah, well, he's about to go on a date with a broad. "Take your shirt off. Let's go. Y'all going to shoot on
the front lawn for the neighbors to see."
Yeah. Good God.
I really like the part, he starts contrasting like Jeff Jarrett versus the Von Erichs and just how the Von Erichs, hey, I love the way he put that. It's like, we're doing a lot more work than we need to be doing to get this job done here.
Jesus.
That's one of my favorite parts. We talk about this all the time. So if you're not a normal listener to our show, you need to put on your adult pants here. But we pretty much subscribe to the fact that you can say almost anything as a heel, and it's okay because you're a heel. But he was worked pretty stiff on old Steamboat now, didn't he?
Yeah, but, I got to agree with him. He's like, "I'm a heel. I'm supposed to offend you. It's supposed to be uncomfortable.
If I'm doing my job right." You can't use the JAP terminology anymore in this day and age, although there are people that do.
Yeah.
Up to and including the former head football coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But I had never heard that second thing he called him.
I don't know what that is, so I'm not even going to speculate.
Well,
I didn't even try to look it up.
I'll throw it out there. He called him a squinch, which I'm not aware of that terminology. I'm going to assume since Steamboat got offended, it's offensive. But I wasn't too aware of that.
Steamboat told him he was a little stiff.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm a heel, damn it.
How great would it be to spend an afternoon poolside with Rob Fuller drinking some beers,
Jesus Christ, I'd love
and then getting in your sedan with Barbara or Lisa waiting on you, and just head down to the matches and beat somebody's ass, and then do some more drinking.
Well, shit, imagine being Terry. Terry, at the beginning of it's talking about all the car trips they had. Imagine being Terry and sitting in the car with that dude for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours straight. Can you imagine the podcast that they cut in those car rides that are just lost to time?
Every night.
I mean, or he talked about riding with Austin.
Yeah.
And how, he was like, he wasn't like saying Steve stole from him, but he was like, man, he goes, Austin, all that cussing and the how he would work with Vince and cut those promos. He's like, you got that all from me. That was so awesome, man.
What was the one where he was it a Von Erich that he said he got body slammed? It was supposed to be, don't body slam me because my stomach's hurting from the 14 beers I had poolside today, and he got slammed and crapped his pants.
Kerry or Kevin, I can't remember which one. Now that you said that, yeah.
Then he was in there with Ming, and he had to tell Ming that he crapped his pants then. You were a wrestler. You ever crap your pants when you got body slammed?
Never crap my pants, but I mean, there were times when, the stomach was bubbling. But what's funny is the reason his stomach was bubbling. He was like, I had been sitting poolside in 114-degree Dallas heat and had been drinking beers all day.
Right.
And he said that's what caused it. So no, never happened to me like that, but that was a great story.
Here's another one. He talks about, when he was talking about working with Flair and he was sick because he was out of shape, he had been hurt. And he's like, Flair's like, just go under the ring and puke and we'll keep going. If I'm at a point where I'm throwing up, whatever I was doing is, unless it's laying back in bed, is over for the day.
Well, he was a professional, I guess you could say, right?
I guess.
Dude, he popped me at the end.
Well, can you imagine any sort of interaction between Robert Fuller and Vince McMahon?
Well, that's the part that got me.
Can you imagine the look on Vince's face after talking to a guy like Robert Fuller? Like, what the goddamn, pal? What the fuck?
Goddamn, pal. I'm trying to give you an opportunity here,
Where's the brass ring?
We'll make you a lot of money. And I was sitting there and I'm talking to Robert Fuller and he looks at me and says, "Yeah, I say, baby's got a pot roast on." Goddamn, pal. Around here we don't eat, we just work. I can't imagine, man. I cannot imagine. But the funniest part was when he told Briscoe at the end, when Briscoe was like, "Rob, this is a good opportunity, man. This is an opportunity of a lifetime to come work here." He goes, "Maybe you see it that way, but moving up to Connecticut, that ain't no opportunity of a lifetime. Baby's got a pot roast on." Dude, it's awesome.
I love it because he's just full of roast and beer, and I love both of those things.
He's the greatest, dude. Like, I'm not gonna.
But the other thing is, he seems like a good dude because you hear a lot of guys that don't do a lot of podcasts, and so he was very natural in that just having the conversation. But a lot of those guys start downplaying other people. He didn't really, Austin's a great guy. Ming's a sweet guy. Rick's a great guy. Wendell Cooley had 14,000 girlfriends.
Yeah, which I can believe that 100%. I mean, he was a good-looking dude for his time, bro. I mean, I can only imagine what he when he was in Mid-South, man. Holy crap. But, dude, I won't say it was the greatest podcast in the history of podcasting like you. However, I will say I have more than probably any, as an interview or as a discussion via a podcast, it was right up there with some of the best because he's real there, bro. That's Robert Fuller right there. I mean, I'm sitting at he told WCW, "I'm not coming to the meetings. I'll be at the pool drinking beer."
That's my hero.
What the fuck?
I'm gonna do that. I'm doing that tomorrow. I'm not going in.
Can you imagine?
I'd love to come in, but first of all, I got a cooler chilling by the pool, and oh yeah, there's a pot roast on.
Dude, imagine contacting Boss Man and calling, yeah, Boss Man, hey, what's going on, Doc? Yeah, I'm not coming in today. Oh, what's wrong? Something going on with the family? Nah, I'll be sitting by the pool. It's going to be 99 tomorrow here. I got a 12-pack of beer. I got it in my cooler. I'll be drinking beer at the pool. What? You're not coming to work? Nah, nothing's wrong. Kids are fine. Wife's fine. I'm drinking beer at the pool.
You heard me, son. I'm at the pool.
I'm at the pool. Dude, he would call medical. Be like, I think something's wrong with Doc.
They would do a welfare check.
Right. I'm worried about his mental stability. Well, what happened? What happened, Mr. Bossman? Well, he called in to work at 7 a.m. this morning, said nothing was wrong. Nothing's wrong with his kids and his wife. He said he was drinking beer at the pool.
Well, I'll tell you to sum this up so we can get on out of here. You know, one of the things I love about this is that Fuller has had such a great career because his brother didn't have as long of a career. He went into hockey. But Robert worked in the 70s and that generation. Then he went to the 80s and, you know, he was booking in Georgia and Southeastern and all that. Then over in the 90s, he was over to Smoky Mountain and participated in that. Then he was in WCW. Then he went up to WWF. I mean, he's been everywhere that it doesn't automatically come to mind. But that guy's worked in 3 different generations, if not 4, and all over the country. And you think of him as a Southern wrestler in the 80s.
And one other thing before we get out of here, as you're saying that, one of the places we haven't tapped, which he talked about a little on the podcast, is Memphis. And I don't want to say when, because Lord knows when that'll happen. But we would love to go through more of his run in like Memphis and stuff like that. Because
let's do it tonight.
I gotta imagine with the balls to the wall stuff that they did in Memphis, that old Robert Fuller was pretty damn entertaining there.
Probably so.
Maybe he's got a pot roast.
Hey, I just looked in the cooler, bud, and we just tapped all the beers out, so it looks like we need to get on out of here.
That sounds like a plan. Let's do that. So I'll catch you next time whenever we record our NWA show. So once again, rest in peace, Terry. We appreciate all the work you did on World Wrestling Domination. And thanks again, Bob Hazlewood. Do us all a favor. Go like that page. Message Bob. Tell him you loved hearing from the Fuller clan, or I want to say Fuller family, especially Robert Fuller, because we know Ron has his show. But this was great. I enjoyed it. Time to get out of here. Until next time.